Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I have one of our sponsors in Sokoman Minerals who had some very good results out this morning, or an update, if you will. What I mean by the very good part is they found a lot of visible gold in their new discovery called 552. And I'm glad to have Tim on the line to talk about that. Tim, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yes, and actually in Toronto as we speak, Allan, ahead of the PDAC, which starts on Sunday, as you know, Kathy's been very busy and got me booked up with a bunch of people today and tomorrow, and yeah, just keep spreading the word and keep plugging away, keep doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's finding gold. And yeah, we're very pleased this morning to announce that the first 3 holes at the 552 zone, and we have a section. In fact, I'll probably bring it up now,
yeah, go ahead. You got share screen there.
Just so people can see that.
By the way, folks, if you're at the PDAC, definitely go to the Sokoman booth and look up Tim. He'll give you a good rundown on everything.
Can you see that, Allan? Am I sharing the screen or not?
I'm not seeing yet, Tim.
No, am I? What's going on? Okay, I always have trouble with this stuff. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Bloody technology.
I know. I'm dangerous with this stuff, right?
Oh, there you go.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so what we got is kind of it's not the whole property, Allan, but basically the key components that we generally discuss when we talk about this part of the property, including the eastern trend, of course, the western trend 75 zone. But today we're going to focus on this area out here to the east, where basically the winter program is going to be focused on a zone, as you correctly pointed out, the 552 zone, which we bumped into, if you will, last fall, just before Christmas, and we finally got all the results back in January, and the one component that was missing from this zone at that time was the high grade, which we know, from every other zone on this property that we've drilled, more than one hole in. You get the good and you get the better, and we've got the good so far. And today we're announcing, of course, that the first 3 holes have been completed, and you can see the section through here, AB, 3 holes, 578, 579, and 580. 578 hit the structure, and like I said, on this property, we drill for structure first, then we look for grade. So, and generally that includes either tip ups to test things deeper sometimes, or a long strike, or both. And this happens to be a 3-hole section we put in, and there's ongoing drilling, of course. We're testing this thing now. Basically, the press release stated that we're going to test 150 meters of strike length with a series of sections down to about 125 meters vertically, just to see what the zone looks like. It's pretty much going to be a grid sort of pattern, but in this system, and I know our neighbors do it over at Newfound as well. They grid drill stuff just to not miss anything, because sometimes if you follow your nose, you can get you into trouble. And whereas if you drill holes where you don't know if you're going to get anything, sometimes you do get something. And well, the plan is basically to drill this out fairly tightly, although these are 30-meter step outs from hole 574, which up until this point was the best hole we had in this zone, which cut 2.1 meters of 5 grams. That was reported in our last press release, with a few specks of visible gold. I think there was, I forget how many exactly, but anyway, certainly not nearly as much visible gold as we're seeing in hole 580, which is the deepest cut on this zone, and it's still only about 60 meters down the hole. So lots of room here to grow this thing, and that's the plan basically moving forward, Allan, is to test this out along strike, obviously, and to depth, and see where we go back in the spring when we get going again. There will be a spring breakup, as there usually is in this part of the world, and yeah, we'll be back at it. Hopefully we'll have all the assays back. We don't anticipate a long wait for assays now. Things have slowed down to the point where they're almost back to normal type turnaround times, a week or two. Although when you do metallics, which is what we're doing on all these holes, HQ core as well to get the bigger sample. These types of analysis take much longer to get to the end game, if you will, the final results, as just a straight fire assay, a 30-gram fire assay. So just so people know that, yeah, we're looking to get every scrap of gold we can get out of these samples and report them obviously as weighted averages. But yeah, so far so good. I can't really comment on anything beyond that
I
because,
got
like
a
I said,
couple of questions. You opened up a bunch of things there, Tim. Let me get in here for a second.
okay,
First of all, you're doing tight spacing, and that's really important in these orogenic gold systems because you've got coarse gold in these orogenic gold systems, and when you're chasing that around with a drill bit, you need to have tight spacing on it to make sure you know what you're in and catch the controls of that system, right? And that's why you're doing the tight spacing, correct?
yeah, and we know enough now. I mean, we've been here for a while drilling, and we've tried the broad step outs, and if you don't get what you're looking for, what does that tell you? Does it tell you that you missed it on the left hand side? Did you missed it on the right hand side? Did you overshoot it? Then you got to start going back, right? So I'd rather build out from a known and keep it going that way rather than just throwing darts at the wall, sort of thing, hoping to get something. I mean, and not no two systems are alike either. There's some systems where a tight space drilling pattern might be 30 meters. Others it may be 15s or 10s or even tighter if you're underground, obviously.
I
But
was um, I was just looking at some drill core from a orogenic gold system, and you look at part of that core and it's just loaded with gold. And then six inches away, there's nothing. And so, if you were 6 inches off, you would have went from 50,000 grams per ton of gold to nothing.
yes,
And
yes,
that's the good thing about these orogenic gold systems, because that's what makes them mines. But it's
yeah.
also the challenging thing with orogenic gold systems. And
Well,
so
certainly, Alan. Yes, you're right. It's a nugget effect, and what is your true grade really? uh, your only true grade is how many ounces of gold you cranked out when the mine closes. That's when you know what your true grade was, and in a lot of cases in these orogenic systems, and not all, but in a lot of cases, the mine grade often surpasses what the cut grade is, or what's reported in a 43-101. So
you even
um,
see that, Tim, in when a bulk sample is done on an orogenic gold system. It's much like my experience in diamonds. You can drill a little hole into a diamond and they're super nuggety. And
mhm.
you get a certain grade based on that little drill core, but then you take a bulk sample and you get a much more representative grade. And so, you know, trying to figure out the representative grade in drilling is crucially important, and that's what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And just to further on this map, Alan, we've
Oh,
obviously been.
before you get into
Oh,
that, Tim, I wanted to add, I think it's important for people to understand the difference between assaying and metallic screening. In assaying, they cut the core, they grind it up, they take a small sample from that, and that's what gives you your grade in an assay result. With metallic screening, you cut the core and you take the entire half of the core, crush that up, and then they put it through a screen. Think of it like screening out your flour for baking or something like that. And because you're taking all of the core, you get a much better recovery of the gold. And in this kind of a system, that's crucially important.
and Alan, I'm just going to add a little further refinement to that statement. You're absolutely correct in that you do you're basically ensuring that you get as much or all the gold out of the sample as possible. possible. And but not all labs do it the same way. And I just want to point out that Eastern Analytical, who we use here religiously, they're our heroes. They pulverize the entire sample, no matter how big it is. It costs you extra to have the extra material pulverized. Whereas several mainland labs, I'm not saying all of them, but some mainland labs only pulverize about 80% of the sample. So you have to be careful. Read the fine print and ask them, do you pulverize the entire sample? Some of them only do a kilo and cut it at a kilo. So
wow.
Again,
What's
another
the
reason
sense
why.
of doing metallic screening if you're not taking everything?
Do they know that there's no gold left in the bag? That's what I'd like to know, right?
Exactly.
I remember there was a bit of a fuss a couple of years ago with metallic screening and duplication of results from certain labs, and kind of threw a little knot into the system. But anyway, I just want to point out that Eastern Analytical do it properly. They
Perfect.
pulverize the entire sample.
Perfect.
And
So
I'm
I
very happy.
interrupted you as you were getting into the guts of that cross section there. Sorry about that, Tim.
Oh, no worries. But what I wanted to point out here is, of course, what got us over here initially, and I don't generally like to give credit to geophysics. I've been burned many times testing geophysical anomalies, especially for gold. But you remember the Alpha IP survey that we did? We made some noise on that last year. We were actually testing a resistivity anomaly out this way, which got us kind of out there. And if you can see these very faint lines,
Yep.
of course, we always learn. I mean, you think you know it all, but you don't, right? So you look at the direction that these holes are drilled in. They're drilled almost in an east-west fashion, thinking that everything was kind of like what's happening at the east trend, the 463, well, not so much 463, but the footwall splay, the western trend, 75 zone, all trend basically north-northeast and dip moderately to steeply to the east. So that's why these holes are drilled this way. As we found out, of course, the 552 and the 463 are actually trending in the opposite direction. So we've wised up, smartened up, and are now drilling holes in this fashion. But what I want to point out is that there's absolutely no drilling back behind here. So that gives us opportunities to find, and I did mention the 253 zone briefly in the press release, that it's probably not the same system. They're kind of, if they are, they're offset, which is possible, right? You have these sort of step ladder type things going on in a lot of these orogenic systems, and like I said, no two are alike. But more likely, it's probably a separate system, and we're kind of hoping that somewhere back here, while we're testing this zone deeper with deeper cuts back behind these holes, that we may actually get lucky and pick up maybe an extension to 253 or something similar to it. But
Something
again,
I notice on those maps, Tim, right away is that there looks to be a structure right beside 552, one going right through 253, and one right beside 463. And that structure is crucially important in the mineralization in an orogenic gold system. Did I get my observations correct on the structures?
Oh, you did. There's something going on here, and this could be a fault. So I won't be surprised if at some point we keep stepping out to the west here, that we will run into a fault. We did run into it in a hole in the first batch that we drilled last year. But again, just one hole, and it's difficult to get an orientation on it. So
and it
we
looks
may
like
hit
there's some bends to the structure, some complexity, and maybe even cross structuring there, especially
absolutely all of the above.
right,
Yep,
right up
all of
by
the
the
above are possible.
right up by the 253 zone, especially.
Yeah, yeah. No, this feature continues pretty much the length of the property. So
Wow.
and again, and not too far down here actually, and it's too bad. In fact, we will put out a more robust map, but just focusing on this area, the South Pond zone is down here, not far off of that as well, right? So, and again, the South Pond zone has a slightly different orientation than most of these other zones that you see up here. So, yeah, like I said, we're still learning here. I mean, we don't have surface outcrops to guide us, and we're basically exploring, with the drill, which is, fine.
Yeah, but you've got in some signs there. I mean, I can see it on the map, the structural story, and why these structures are so important, folks, is that's how the gold bearing fluids from deep make their way up to surface in an orogenic gold system. It's a crack in the earth that is the path of least resistance. Now, I also note, and oftentimes cross structuring can be important, or where you see a bend in the structure, and it looks like there's one right up by the B on your AB there.
Kind of like this.
That's a cross structure, right? Going right towards 463.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, what it's going to do now to everything here, we'll find out. But like I said, this is why you drill a grid pattern, because a lot of times if you drill a hole and you're disappointed with the results, you kind of change your thought and you lose your focus.
Right.
Whereas this way, it's regimented. We're going to see what's there, fault or no fault. We need to know if it's there anyway. I mean, you have to know these things. So that's the focus going forward. Basically, and I don't know how many holes will get finished before spring breakup, but certainly a couple thousand meters is likely.
Well, you're
15.
banging them off pretty quickly, Tim, because you just got started, what, 2 weeks ago?
Oh, I know, but look at the scale here. I mean, these holes. I don't know if I don't know if any of them went 100 meters, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
and when you drill them from the same setup, it saves time and money as well. So, yeah, we should. We'll know a lot more about this system in a few weeks' time. Trust me, than we know now, obviously. But and hopefully continue with sourcing and sticking with that high grade that we now look, for sure that we're going to, obviously meet with some success in that regard, getting the high grade. And again, I'll mention that, every other zone on this property, 75 football play, 463 Western, all of them have high grade zones in them. So there's no reason why 552 shouldn't.
Well, you know what's got me really excited about this new, not just the structural story there, but also the fact that you're getting visible gold, although it's fine grained so far, you're getting a significant amount of the visible gold, but you're right at surface. So you're really in the very top of an orogenic gold system. And, often what they see in these is that you transition out of the fine grained into the more coarse grained stuff as you go deeper into the system. But to get that much fine grained VG so close to surface is pretty awesome.
Well, I'd actually prefer to see the visible gold finer and more widespread.
Right.
You're still going to have the nugget effect, because a nugget can be this big or it can be that big, right? So you still call them nuggets, because that's how gold occurs. It's just free nuggets and grains, right? But I'm happy seeing small specks of gold. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah, but again, you're in the very top of the system, and as you get deeper, that's generally what happens in an orogenic system, right? It gets more coarse. Of course, that's
Depends, yeah. Well, you could have a structural flip over too. So, you
uh,
have to be careful. And these rocks are folded, Alan. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind too, right? So,
there's another thing
never
that's
assume anything.
there's another thing that's important when it comes to mineralization in orogenic gold system is not just structure, but the folding of the rocks. These things prepare the rocks to allow that gold bearing fluid to get in there and drop out the gold.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I just want to point out as well, this little blue triangle here. This is the approximate location. This is, of course, something that was found in the 80s, pre-GPS type era. Naranda found a float 10. It should be 10.3 grams, but 10 is good enough. Float out in this area as well, and with ice direction kind of north, say north 20 east sort of thing. Um, is the source for this float again, somewhere down here, which means, we got a lot more drilling to do down this way as well.
Because
So,
it's likely not coming off if the ice direction was from the west to the east, then you could say, well, maybe it's coming from 552, 463, or 253, but when it's coming that direction, it can't really come from
no,
five.
that's right. No, that's right, Alan. It's not from anything prior that we knew of prior to 552. You know, is it the eastern extent of 552? We'll find out. Now, whether we get that far over with the drilling this winter remains to be seen. But like I said, once things dry up in the spring, we're going to be back here again. So you know, we're we're going to be like badgers. You know, like this.
The honey
business.
badger.
Yes, yes.
And the good thing about this work that you're doing in at 552 is it gives you some added information when you do go towards 253 or 463 or that float.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So just to summarize, like I said, there's no assays in today's news, but you know, we felt that, you know, it was prudent for us to, you know, at least um, announce that things seem to be going according to plan, if you will, at 552, and that visible gold has been intersected in two of the last three holes we drilled there, and you know, significant, what I would call significant, you know, 30-40 specks of gold in hole 580, which is the deeper, steeper hole you see there in the section. And again, I expect assays in a few short weeks or less. Again, metallics generally take a bit longer than regular 30-gram fire analysis, as you pointed out earlier. But at least we know exactly how much gold is in that sample.
And it's interesting that you got three holes there, and as you get to the deepest one, that's where you have your highest count of VG. That's kind of what you want to see, right, Tim?
Yep, yep. And there'll be holes poked deeper than that too, trust me.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Tim, I know you're on a tight schedule. You got some meetings set up to talk about this with investors. You got the PDAC coming up. Well,
Yes.
and good start to the 552 zone.
So far, so good. Cross your fingers, sir, for some sweet results. And yeah, and more holes like 580 to come. I have a good feeling about this area.
Good, Tim. And I've got a good feeling about the price of gold getting us out of this poor sentiment towards gold stocks. I think that gold is looking for an excuse to break out above 2100. It's stayed nicely above 2000 for the last few months. And I think it's just waiting for, it's like a coiled spring. And they let loose that coiled spring. And I think a lot more attention is going to come to gold exploration. I think you guys have a great project. So good on you. Good work. Keep it up, Tim.
Thank you, Allan. And until next time, stay well.
You too. I'll see you in Toronto in a couple of days.
Take care, Allan.
All
Nice
righty.
chatting.
I'm gonna close it off, Tim. I know you got to run, so I'll close
Okay.
it off and I'll see you in Toronto.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Okay, there you go, folks. Tim gave us a good rundown on the new drilling on the 552 zone. This is follow-up drilling on the discovery hole. Seeing some very interesting stuff in that drilling we talked about there, including the VG. And as you are getting deeper into the system, they're getting more of the VG, which I find very interesting. And they're doing a bunch more holes in that area. And they've got other areas in the immediately around the 552 zone that look quite intriguing as well. And so they're drilling away. They'll drill right until spring breakup. So they got a month or two more of drilling. And then they'll get back in there once the breakup. That's usually about a month or something. And they should have very good news flow as they're doing the work that they're doing right now. Next batch would probably be some assays and more updates on visible gold, I hope, in their drilling. As always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decision. Sokoman is a sponsor of my show, so they pay me to help them put together content such as this. You know, I've spent 30 years in the mining business, and the only thing that really excites me and gets my interest is what's happening with the drilling. And that's what I focus on when I create content for my sponsors. But as always, it's important for you to go go to their website, check out their news releases, talk to your financial advisor. Doing that homework is crucially important when looking at any company, really. No matter what the sector is, the most informed investors usually are the most successful ones, and that's why I'm always banging the table and telling people to do their homework. And these shows I do are kind of an assistance in that, doing that homework. And so get on it. Take a look at Sokoman. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.